more confident speaking English. The English Conversation Club is your global hub to boost fluency, network with inspiring professionals, and dive deep into today's hottest topics. Members get live conversation practice 7 times a week and much more. We only open enrollments every few months, so join the waitlist today if you don't want to miss out. Plus, I'll send you a code for 40% off your first month of membership. The link is in the show notes. Now, let's dive into today's topic, how to know if you've improved in English. Hey, Christina here, and today I am talking to Andrew on a topic that I'm sure is going to interest all of you who are listening to this podcast, because if you're listening to this podcast, it's because you're trying to improve your English, and we're going to find out how you can know if you have improved your English. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. And you?
All right. Yep. Doing well. Right. So today's topic is, how to know if you've improved your English. I think a lot of people, the standard answer would be, I just have to take a test like the TOEIC or something like that and get my score. But I disagree. But I want to know your thoughts, because this is really your area of expertise and you have written extensively on this topic. So I'm just going to stop talking and let you share your wisdom with us.
Well, I think we can have a dialogue about this.
Right.
You're a very experienced professional and you know about these things.
Sure.
But, yes, I have written a lot about it. Basically, my feeling, if you're talking about tests, do tests reflect your level? Not really. I mean,
I agree.
The first point is that most tests today are semi-automatic.
Right.
They don't include oral aspects, so they, at any rate, traditionally they don't. They basically listening and reading tests.
Mm-hmm. Because that allows you to test people at scale. You know, you can test 1,000 people and grade 1,000 tests in 20 minutes. And
exactly. So it's in a kind of industrialized form. It gives an idea of how much knowledge, passive knowledge you might have, but it doesn't actually measure, what you're actually capable of doing in real life. You know? Right.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Nowadays they are integrating the oral. I mean, in proper exams, Cambridge exams and so on, they do integrate with teachers. They integrate speaking skills and writing skills, right?
Right.
But that is very costly.
Yeah.
So today it's being done by artificial intelligence, by speech recognition and so on, which has its limits. I mean, it's not real dialogue at all. We're still not nowhere near real dialogue. So I think there are 3 notions that are very important in this. The first one is level, language level. What does that mean? The second one is competency or skill. What does that mean? And the third one is performance. And what does that mean? And it's rather confusing. Okay, so level, basically, if we're talking about levels, what it means is in the European Common Framework, which is the one that is the most used today, there are 3 levels.
Right.
A, A1, A2, B, B1, B2, and C, C1, C2. So C2 being fluent, more or less, and A1 being, just having a few words that you can say here and there. Okay.
Right.
Now, that idea of level is very vague, and it's very difficult to decide, which one you're actually at. The European Union has done a lot of research on this. Yeah. And they've broken it down into micro competencies, volume of vocabulary, grammatical accuracy, and so on and so forth. They've broken it down into many different categories. Right. But even then, it's a little bit vague. Okay, so when you say someone, you can more or less say someone is around B1.
Right, yeah.
But it doesn't really reflect everything, because they may be B1 in one skill.
Right.
We do have 4 skills, 5 skills, in fact.
Sure.
the common reference, has 5 skills: interaction, listening, reading, writing, and speaking, right?
Yeah.
So you could be really strong in speaking, which would be the case of a native speaker,
Sure.
but maybe really bad at writing.
Yeah.
So what's your level?
Right. Yeah. Well, then you would have levels for each skill, I would say.
That's the thing. So actually, a level is very difficult to put it on a chart, on a linear vertical chart, right?
Yeah. And to say someone is B1 or someone is B2.
Because maybe a native speaker is C1, C2 in speaking, but B1 in writing.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? If you make an average, that means they're a B2, and yet this person is able to speak absolutely fluently.
Right, exactly. And they're a native speaker of English, so.
A linear definition of level doesn't really work. There is probably a better way. It's this web sort of analysis where you can see that they are very strong in speaking, but not very strong in reading, but quite strong in writing, but absolutely rubbish in, in interaction, oral interaction, that is conversation. So,
so what about competency then? Is that the same as level?
So competency is a bit different. It's inside level, right? Competency is more your ability to perform certain tasks, to do certain tasks, to know to have the knowledge that allows you to do certain tasks. Okay.
Right.
So competency can be it can be listening, right? So it's your competency in listening.
Yeah.
So it's your competency in reading, writing. So those are the competencies, the ones that we talked about before. Okay. Those are the global competencies, and then within that, you have micro competencies. Right?
And so this might be like specific tasks.
That's right. Yeah. So it could be related to a job. It could be related to, being able to talk about this subject in a group.
Right, exactly. Because you might be very competent at, let's say, I don't know, leading a meeting, but not so competent in doing a sales presentation, for example.
Right. And you might be really good at listening to movies and understanding everything, but you might not be able to talk about food.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there are all sorts of so it can be broken down into many things.
Right.
So those are the competencies, right? And the third notion is performance.
Right. Yeah.
So how well do you perform? Because you can have the competency, you can have the skill, but you may not have the performance.
Right. Like you just you can do it, but you might not be very good at it.
Yeah. So you might perform very well on an exam, but you might not perform very well in real life.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes I don't know if this is what you've seen in your experience, but I've seen sometimes people come in and they'll have a very good TOEIC score. And I say, okay, great. They've got a pretty good level. And then we get into a discussion and I'm like, wait, this is not what I expected based on their TOEIC score, or it could be vice versa. They might just have a bad TOEIC score or a low TOEIC score. Let's not say bad, but a lower score. And I'll say, okay, well, I'm not expecting too much in terms of their level. And then we get into a discussion and they can definitely talk. And so, there's we had back to what you said, about the difference between a test score and your performance and your competency. Yeah.
We did a lot of research on things like TOEIC. And we questioned a lot of people. We sent out questionnaires and we interviewed many people who, have been working with the TOEIC and others, not just TOEIC.
Just tests, standardized tests in general.
Basically, there is a big, shall we say, random factor involved.
Yeah.
So in a minority of cases, but it's still quite a substantial minority, maybe 30%.
Right.
The actual score does not reflect the real level of the person.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you will get some people, for example, right at the top, who come from, business school, who are very brilliant, and who have learnt to be very good at guessing how to pass exams with multiple choice.
Right. Yeah.
which is
So
what
they can
most
come out
tests
with
are
a good
based on.
score. Yeah.
So they end up with 900 on TOEIC
Yeah.
or whatever, B2 or C1 or C2. But in reality, when you put them in a situation, and I've seen this many times, they can't. So to give you an example, a real life example, this was told to me by a top executive. He said, well, I recruited 2 sales people
Right.
who had, top scores in TOEIC.
Yeah.
And so, I thought that's great. So they're going to be able to be, to be very
good salespeople in English because they have a good TOEIC score. No,
so
right.
I took them into a meeting with our American colleagues, and neither of them was able to say a word.
Of course.
And they weren't even able to understand what was going on.
Yeah.
So I was very disappointed.
Yeah, exactly.
Never use this anymore. And so you'll see that in a lot of companies now, they don't test like that. They do it just as a reference, but basically they bring people in the recruitment process and they get somebody to talk to them. And in 10 minutes, that person can tell you if they're good
if
or
they're
not.
competent or not. I was going to say that just makes so much more sense than jumping through a bunch of hoops of a standardized test. Just have somebody talk to them and see if they can do it.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Andrew, for all of that. Very interesting just to know what's the difference between these different things. Because very often we talk about what level do you have in English? But as we saw, there's, a difference between level, competency, and performance, and they don't necessarily always match up. Right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Andrew. Have a good one. Very interesting conversation. So I'm sure that they'll look forward
more to talk about, but I did want to talk about. I know we're nearly finished, so we can't do it this time. But just to make a quick reminder, yes, it's also interesting to talk about what it takes to learn the language and how long it takes, because that's often the reason why people don't know what their level is and don't understand it, and what rhythm above all that you're learning at, and what
they expect to go from B1 to C1 in 20 hours, and I'm just like, no, that's impossible.
In 20 hours once a week.
Exactly. Exactly. So. Yeah, right. Well, that could be a topic for another podcast, and for the conversation sessions in the English Conversation Club. All right. So thank you for listening. But if you want to become a member of a global tribe of inspiring professionals becoming confident in English, get on our wait list. You'll be the first to know when we open enrollment again, and I'll send you a code for a 40% discount off your first month of membership. This is Christina from Business English with Christina, and I will talk to you soon.